instance, if we know which group is experimental or not. That can all have an impact. And then this will create differences between our group, which we do not want. Because at the end of the day, this is going to shift the effect we wanted to see. The true effect is this. Oh, the pointer no longer works. That's okay. That's fine. The true effect over here is what we wanted to investigate. And if we include bias in our study, it may get overestimated or underestimated. And this is a shame because it means our results are going to be unreliable. So we would have put all this effort and time and money for unreliable results, which of course we do not want. That's something that was actually investigated. This is a nice systematic review by MacLeod et al., where they grouped studies if they had randomized and blinded their study. And the line that you can see here in gray is the effect of the treatment. And what we see is that in every group of studies who did not randomize and did not blind, the effect is bigger than when it was randomized and blinded. So that's really important to take into consideration. Now, switching on questionable research practices. I think you all heard about good research practices and fraud. Fraud is really very bad, criminal. Please don't do this. And it's really voluntarily manipulating data, but it's usually pretty rare. At least I hope it is pretty rare. The issue here is questionable research practices, which kind of lies in between these two in this axis. And it occurs much more often because sometimes people don't even realize that what they're doing is actually questionable research practices. The only thing I'm tweaking my data a bit so I have more chances of publication, for instance, but that's actually harmful to science because it's much more common and really hard to detect. We have, for instance, p-hacking and harking. Harking is when you change your hypothesis later. You discovered what your results are and you think, well, this was my hypothesis all along, when maybe at the beginning of the study you had a different one. And p-hacking is the fact of tweaking your statistical analysis until you get something significant and then only report that as the true result. As you can imagine, it really prevents a full overview of the true results. I will drink because I'm talking very loud and my throat is getting tired already. Now, I was not talking about reporting. And that's how we move to selective outcome reporting and publication bias. I think it all happened to us. And we read a paper and we don't really understand what's written there. It's not really clear what the author have done. A lot of things is not mentioned and not fully mentioned. And sometimes this goes even further. When some result, part of the result are just completely missing. This is referred to as selective outcome reporting. It's when certain outcomes or groups, for instance, are being removed with the hope that the study will have more chances of being published. And this can be done both by researchers who really hope to get published, but also by editors who will say, well, this is neutral or negative data, just remove it from the paper. But altogether, it prevents to have a full overview of what was done. Sometimes this is even further, it goes further, when the whole manuscript can't be published based on its type, maybe it's a replicative study, or on its results. And once again, it prevents to have a full overview of what was done. That may lead to unnecessary duplication by other people, but also redoing someone else's work, and once again using money, time, and animals. So that's all pretty bad aspect. Now, I hope this is a bit more clear. Different factors behind the reproducibility crisis. There is more than these three, but these three are really important. And so to counteract them, many guidelines were set up already a couple of years ago, for some of them more than 15, 20 years ago. And pre-registration can help. So now, after this very lengthy introduction, the topic you all came to see, pre-registration of animal studies. So, first of all, let's maybe get the basic. What do I mean by pre-registration? So pre-registration is the fact of registering a study prior to the start of the experiment. And in practice, it involves for researchers to write a study protocol that they will usually upload in a platform. And in that study protocol, they will mention the hypothesis they want to test, the different outcomes they're interested in, information about their methodological design. It can be which method they will use for randomization, blinding the number of animals, etc., and their analysis plan. And so this alone, as you will see, has tons of benefits for science. So when researchers register their study, they get a timestamp that proves when it was done, and they also get a DOI or a PID, which is a persistent number unique to their protocol. And so this alone, of course, really helps to increase transparency, because now study protocols that would be made within the university or within the animal welfare body or ethical committee is now available for any other researchers. That's very nice. And it also helps to strengthen your study design and your reporting, because it really pushes researchers to think before the study starts. What am I going to do really in depth? And maybe some questions that people would not have thought of are going to be answered now earlier in the process. And it's also a nice way to report, because we all have done studies and then have forgotten what we had first plans. Now you have a proof of what you had first planned, and you can return to it and report it well. Now when the study is final and hopefully published, this protocol can be used to compare what was written in the manuscript with what was planned. And of course, this is quite useful to reduce some of the biases I mentioned earlier. Selected outcome reporting is much less likely to happen, for instance, because all the outcomes are listed in the protocol, so it becomes very clear if some of them are missing in the paper. Same is true for marking, for changing the hypothesis. In theory, the hypothesis is clearly stated in the protocol and will be in the manuscript. Now, I'd like to mention it's okay to change things with your study. Sometimes animal research is unpredictable and things can change. The problem is not changing it, the problem is hiding the change. As long as it is hopefully reported, transparently reported, that's not a problem, of course. One thing that can be done as well is to link data or result to your protocol. And that's really nice to reduce publication bias, because now, even if the study, for instance, do not get published, the final data remain available with the original protocol. So it really helps with data sharing. And so these benefits are really for people that pre-register themselves, but you also have benefits just by looking at these platforms. So prior to your own study, you can check in these registries what has been performed by other researchers, maybe find studies that were also interrupted, to learn from them. And also, these protocols often have a lot of details that might be not provided in the manuscript, so it also helps with reducing. Now, who benefits from this? I hope it's clear now to all of you that researchers obviously benefit from this, but also their peers and peer reviewers when publishing, because we can use this with evaluation. There is some indirect benefits for universities, funders, and journals, because then, of course, it makes sure that what they support, fund, and publish at least tries to be consistent and well-planned. And if we want to take it even more further, there is a direct benefit for animals and society. Animals, because one of the goals of pre-registration is to reduce involuntarily duplication, so less animal would be used. And society, because it's asked more and more nowadays that researchers, we must be really transparent about what we do, and so pre-registration enters into this system. Now, some of you might have heard about pre-registration in the past. It's not new in clinical research, for instance. It has been mandatory for more than 20 years by law. So no clinical trials can be published today without a pre-registration. And this already proved very good benefits. Here's one example from Kaplan et al., which I like. In this study, they took clinical trials before there were pre-registration existing and after. And what we see here, I'm sorry, I have to show with my hand because the pointer is not working. Before pre-registration, we had a lot of studies providing good results, positive result, and neutral. And then once pre-registration became mandatory and people had to be truthful to what they had planned, we see that we have much more neutral result and even some negative one now being reported. So we have a much more reliable overview of what was done and not what the publisher was to say. So this is really good for science. So this is for clinical trials, clinical research. What about animal research? That's what you guys are here for, right? Well, this is much more new. For animal research, pre-registration only exists for a couple of years. So there's not that much infrastructure yet for it to occur. At present, there is only 2 registers really dedicated to animal study pre-registration. Preclinicaltrials.eu, for which I'm the director, so you'll hear about it. And the animalstudyregistry.org, which is a German initiative. Of course, it's always possible to also use general registries like the OSF, which some of you might know, but it's less targeted on animal research, so their template is less well fitted, let's say, to animal experimental design. Now, one question we get a lot about animal study pre-registration is, okay, you show all these nice benefits, but does it work? Do you have proof, do you have data, statistics that this improves transparency or improves reporting? And I do. I have some preliminary data for you all today. I'm really glad that I can show that. We collaborated actually with the Germans and with the OSF to do a study together where we collected all our protocols, so on both platforms, and then we found all papers that were linked to these protocols, if there were any. And we collected 2 control groups. One control group is papers from the same journal, but that were not pre-registered, and a different control group were papers from the same author than this one, but that were not pre-registered. Simply to see, is the quality improving thanks to pre-registration, or is this team simply super good at reporting? And when I mean similar, I mean so same journal or author, roughly the same publication date. They all had to be experimental studies, same species, and using similar fields and techniques. So we wanted the control to be really close to the original paper. And so we scored for the ARRIVE Essential 10. That's a reporting guideline that is very used in animal research. And so from these ARRIVE, we created a score. So the best paper then would go between 0, 8, and 1 in excellent, and then this would go down to the lowest grade. And that's what we see. For the pre-registered paper, they scored the highest in good reporting quality, with their mean exactly at excellent. And then the author match were second in good, and the journal match were third in average. You see there is quite some variety, heterogeneity in the data. Some score very high, some score rather low. But in the means, pre-registration seems to improve reporting quality. We also check for consistencies and deviation between the protocols that we have collected and their papers. Because it's good to have good reporting, but if everything was changed from the planned approach, that's quite complicated. So we looked at 9 items that are quite common in experimental designs, hypothesis, outcome analysis, and so on. And this is what we have found. Basically, the yellow means yes, it is consistent, or at least it was justified, or it's not consistent. The light blue means we had not enough information to score this. And the dark blue is there is clearly a discrepancy between what was planned and what was recorded. So overall, we have 47% of consistency, which you might think is not that much, but compared to other evaluation, it's actually more than in clinical trials, which is pretty good. And these were the items that scored the best. So quite hopeful to see that primary outcome and hypothesis score consistently, because that would be really worrying otherwise. Okay, I hope these data, I mean, for me it was really exciting to show, but I hope it was interesting. Now let's get into the practical things. If you want to pre-register your study, how would this work? And I will be using preclinical trial study as an example because this is the platform I'm with. So about the platform, about us, we started in 2018. We are funded by the Dutch Ministry of Agriculture and sponsor, funder of animal research, SVF. And we're currently hosted at Utrecht University, at Utrecht University in the Netherlands. The platform itself is fully free to use, and it's also anonymous. So if you register, your name and your personal information will not be displayed. And we accept all type of animal research, exploratory, confirmatory, even any biomedical research, even vet research. As long as there's animals being used, you can pre-register it. And how does this work? Users have to make an account, and then they have to fill up a form. And the form looks like this. So it's made of different tabs, mostly focused into experimental design. And as I mentioned earlier, the ARRIVE guideline is fully ARRIVE compliant. So if you pre-register and then use this later to report, you will be ARRIVE compliant. Now, once the form is filled in and the users are happy with what they wrote down, they can submit it for registration. And it goes through an administrative review. So we check that everything is well filled in, that there is no information missing, there is no huge inconsistencies going on, and also that this is an animal study. We had sometimes people trying to register human studies on the platform, which would not take. And if that's good, this is checked by me or my colleague, then we validate it and it gets registered on the platform with or without an embargo. So it means it's either right away available to the public, to other users, or it's hidden for a certain period of time. And we'll come back to it in a moment. Sometimes things are missing, something is not correct in the form, so we can send it back to the user, and they have the possibility to, by email, and then they have the possibility to modify the protocol, send it again, and usually by the second review, it's all good, and it can be registered on the platform. Some points. The review I mentioned now is really only administrative. I, by myself, can't be an ethical animal review. It's also not a peer review. I wish I would have the knowledge to peer review every topic in animal research, but unhappily I don't have the knowledge to do that. So it's really only checking that the form is well filled in. Of course, once the protocol is registered, it's not fixed. It can be changed at any time. Simply, every time a new change is being done, it will create a new version of the protocol. And each version remains available on the platform. You will have the V1, V2, V3, and you can have as many versions as you wish. The embargo that I mentioned, so it completely hides the protocol. Nobody can see it but us for emergency purposes and the author of the protocol. It starts at 1 year and then can be renewed for a longer period of time. We keep it as 1 year, so it gives a bit more flexibility for people to have it longer, even to have it shorter. And you can remove it, you can lift it whenever you wish. And as I said, only accessed indeed by the admin. And that's it for this part. One very nice function that we have, that I thought it would be good for you to know on the platform, is our export-import function. What we have heard a lot from researchers when we created the platform is, I have all this administration work to do for the ethical review board, and then I have to manually fill it in again for you guys. So it's twice the work. Once for the ethical review and then once for you. So what we have done is we have created a link between the softwares of the animal welfare bodies and our own platform. So now there is no double work. The researchers provide their information as they have to by law, and then within a couple of clicks, maybe you re-uploading a document, their pre-registration gets made for them. And depending, oh, I'm missing one. We also have the Epafis one. Depending on the software, as you can imagine, each institute has their own description and way of doing things. It fill ups our template 40 to 100% of the form. But even for the 40%, it's still a big gain of time. And we also, because some of these software researchers use their own mother tongue, for instance, which is not English, we have within this export something that translates from the original language to English. So there's no extra translation work either. So to recap, what do you need to pre-register? An internet connection. This is a platform online. A study protocol, and I would advise you to have it finished because it's the easiest. Of course, you can already start to fill up the template with a draft, but that will be easier. An account to the platform. It's literally your name, your address, and your affiliation, so it's very quick to do. And a bit of time. Roughly, with the protocol, when the export not exists, if you have your protocol in hand, it takes 20 to 30 minutes to complete. So it is a bit of time, and it is time well invested. And for those with the export, our shorter export is 3 clicks. So it's less than a minute. Now, that you heard me blab for half an hour about pre-registration, I would like to hear your opinion. What is your first impression, now that I spoke so much about it? Any brave volunteer in the audience? No, don't worry, I'm looking at you, but you don't have to speak up. Yeah, I know you three are convinced. You can smile if you want.
I can give my second impression.
Sure, you can give your second impression.
So my first impression is good. My second impression is not that, like, after trying to convince people who do basic science studies full time and studies pre-register, what we find in the Brazilian Reproducibility Initiative is really, I mean, people first they tend to pre-register very. Sometimes they're just vague. I mean, we forced everybody to do it. I don't think people felt particularly committed to it, or like I think a lot of people just like register something vague, ideal, and then just like broke it because and we got like a lot of notifications. I think we put a lot of effort in protocol review, and ultimately like so much stuff got broken that maybe, I mean, this was a lot of effort. So yeah, so this is my first impression is quite good. My second is more so and so because I think it does that effort. I don't think it's lost effort because I think it's worth thinking of the protocol ahead. I think, but ultimately I do not feel like the degree of commitment to actually having a protocol that I'm able to execute later. I think people just like quote something that looked nice, and then they just realize that I could actually in my lab I can do this actually to solve it. So I mean, this is just want to share this. I'm not sure if you have any thoughts about how. And again, I think sometimes it's not that bad. Like if you said I'll use like 3 months animals and I use like 3.5 or 4, maybe that's not a big issue. But maybe in others, like if I said I was going to analyze this and then I analyze it this other way around, I mean, yeah, because I think like, you're not going to try like, yeah, if you just like change the age, I mean, it's not like people like try like 3 months animal, then 3.5, then 4, then 5, then 6. Probably not. I mean, they just like done late and did. But like if they use a different statistical test, I think like the chances that they actually try this and this and this and then I put this because this makes answer is much greater. So if you get the feeling like for some things such as like your exact analysis plan, I think it's more worth it than for other things that are just like not gonna try things over and over and over again. So yeah,
this is a feeling that is shared by many people indeed, that this is much fitted for more confirmatory later type of research where where there is less chance of variability. I think personally it's useful for everything, especially for your hypothesis. Sure, you might change your test, but your hypothesis will probably stay the same, at least should stay the same throughout. But I understand that indeed, when a lot of things get changed later on in the long run, yeah, some researchers are not going to go back to the platform and change their protocol again. I think for this you need to be committed. Not everybody is committed to this, but for us the main idea is that at least some of the key points are registered. Sure, some might change on the long run, and then as long as you're somewhat transparent about this in your paper, then that's fine. What I would find troubling or a bit more difficult is pretending, oh, this is what I have planned all along, when we all know that there have been 5 trials. Of course, you don't have to be. I know it's not nice to say on the paper we stopped this because this failed. Huh? It's never nice. But at the end of the day, if people can reuse that data as well, and if we can learn from it, I think it's the best to be transparent about it. But I know this is a very positive thinking about how research works. And we can return to this. I think we have to go for now. As you can imagine, researchers had plenty of concerns about using this platform. Some had very good comments, but here are some of the concerns that we hear very often. And I would like to just go through them and explain how we try to answer these concerns. So maybe these are some of yours as well, then you will recognize yourself. Some people tell us simply, it's nice, but I don't have time for this, which of course we understand is an extra administrative step to take. Some people think, what if just what you said, what if my methodology change along the way? I want my scientific creativity to remain. I'm not really going to go back to the platform every time to change things. What about eligibility? That's a question we get often. I'm scared that my data is going to get stolen, someone's going to scoop me and publish before me, or that my private data is going to be stolen on the platform. Some people don't know, wonder about the cost, and some are interested but they have no clue where to start. So regarding cost and eligibility, that was mentioned before, but just to be very clear about this is fully free. There is no cost for the researchers at all. The only cost that you have is for your internet to access the platform, and that's the only thing. And we accept all animal studies. Of course, we prefer for people to pre-register, so to register before the start of their study, but we know it's not always possible. So we also accept protocols later in time, as long as you're transparent about it. That you see, my study already started, but I'm only registering my protocol now. We think it's better to have transparency at some point than not at all. It also opens a nice door for people who wants to put their data somewhere on interrupted studies, for instance. So that's something we can also do. For those who said, I don't have time for this, yeah, I know you don't want to hear it, but it's time well invested. That's true. I know we are all pressed by time, but it is something that's going to help on the long run. And of course, as I said, we have our fast export that we try to develop as much as possible. So if you're interested, please pressure your university so we can create this here, or a similar institute, because that's the most difficult part is not setting up, it's convincing the institutes to make it happen. So if you're interested, please let us know. And also the form itself is actually rather short. We have roughly 25 items that you need to fill in that are mandatory. They're really close to the ethical review procedure that you have to do by law. So it's not so much the work. Oh, and for places where the fast export are not possible, we also have guiding documents that basically tell to the researchers, this is your ethical review document, and this part you need to copy here for us. This part you need to copy here, and so on. And we also try to create as much as possible. If you think that would be nice, let me know and we can try to create that from here. Regarding security and intellectual property, as I said, we have an embargo that hides everything from the public, so that's already handled. And you can decide yourself when your embargo is lifted. So you can wait, for instance, until publication to lift it. It's 1 year and it's renewable. Also, registration is fully anonymous, so no risk of someone knowing that you personally registered. The only thing mentioned is the name of the institute where the study takes place. To enter, to see the protocols fully in detail, users need an account. It might be seen that some malicious people trying to get on the platform will not take the time to create an account. So that's a way for us to also protect our users from malicious people. And if all of this is not enough, blinding of some information is allowed. We had, for instance, a protocol for patents where they could not name the drug they were using. So right now on the protocol it says drug X, and it will remain drug X, I think, for as long as the patent is solidified and validated. That's possible. Our main focus is on design, so there's no problem to hide some information. And if you don't know where to start, we have plenty of information and guidance for you. We have our own FAQ on the website. We have a how-to document with screenshots that I meticulously took myself, showing how to click, how to fill things, from how to create my account to how to lift my embargo. And if that's not enough, we even have guidance hours. You can book me for half an hour or 1 hour, and I can register live with you. We can have a chat. Quite often, PhD students ask me, please convince my PI to let me do this. You can also do this through the guidance hours. Some key points to remember. Well, I hope now you all know what pre-registration is. It has some great benefit to improve transparency, improve quality, and decrease research waste. There is not that many platforms to register yet. We talked mostly today about one of them, preclinical.eu, which is fast, secure, and we try to the best of our capabilities to respect researchers' needs. And that's it. Here are some of our info. I think the slide might be shared later. This is all clickable, so you can contact us at our info email or me personally if you have a question. We also have a LinkedIn and X account, Twitter account. Please follow us if you have any updates. And here you have the website, and you can also book your own guiding hour if you want to register. And with this, I would like to thank you so much for your attention and your time, and I'll gladly take any questions. I hope you can hear me in the back. I'm trying to speak loud, but it's hard to be consistent throughout.
Alguém quer fazer perguntas? Enfim, algum comentário?
Thank you for your presentation. Just out of curiosity, are the 5 publications linked to the original protocols? Were the authors that had deviations from the original protocols identified somehow encouraged to address them by updating the protocols?
This is in process, so this paper is in preparation. That's something we will indeed let them know. Yes,
So, what is the ideal unit of registration? Because I mean, you can think of like this one big confirmatory and just bring in that like goes on for like a year, and that's an easy, right?
Yeah.
But like a lot of basic research, I do a small experiment on like 10, and then oh wow, I found this, and then let's try to block those attacks, and then it's kind of like most like basic science papers are really like a series of 5, 6, 7 different experiments. Sometimes one leads to the other, right?
Yeah.
Or at least you think they do, and you don't really know what happened like, in the story that they're on the paper. So like, if you have this like sequence of 5 or 6 experiments, would you register the whole sequence, or would you do it experiment by experiment? Because if you have like, usually people like ask for funding, they have like half a dozen experiments in mind,
Yeah.
but maybe like this, like the 5th one will change because the 2nd one said X,
Yeah.
right? So like, would you register the whole project? Would you do it experiment by experiment? What's your opinion on this?
I mean, we have both on the platform. I guess it really depends how much you expect it, simply in terms of practicality, how much you expect it to change. We have people who do one by one. It's easier for them also because the first one will guide the second and will guide the third. And so for this, we have a duplicate button. We can duplicate one of your protocols and just simply change, sometimes only one parameter change. So it makes it very easy for you to do it fast. And you can also link protocol together by project. So maybe you have 7 different protocols for 7 experiments, you can have it together. Some people prefer to have it all together, and then we have in our experimental table, you can write experiment 1, this is animal cell, animal cell, experiment 2, animal cell, animal cell. Both are possible. I guess if you expect one experiment to provide really core information about the next one by one seems easier. If you already know in advance, I have some independent ones, you can have them all together. So that would be my approach, at least just in terms of how easy it is also for the researchers to be involved. Yes, Clarissa.
Yeah, just also, I was curious about the anonymity feature. Like, what's the thinking behind that? Can you make it non-anonymous? Like, can you identify yourself?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking with the fear of spoofing, this could be a way of protecting to say this was my idea, this was my hypothesis, I have registered this in this date, even if the experiment exploded.
Yeah, so that's indeed possible. It's by default on, but you can remove it too. But it's by default on. So the main fear that when we interviewed many researchers to get their input on the platform when it was developed, well, I say we, but I wasn't employed yet by this. Our committee, when they did the platform, they asked researchers for their opinion, and their fear was animal activists are going to find me and they're going to come to my house and they're going to come to my institute. Which is why we choose this as default, that it can be turned on. And also some people ask that question as well. For instance, they work on a very specific animal model that's a bit outside of the ordinary. And then they are at a small institute and they think everybody will know this is me. There's only one team doing this. Then things can be tweaked a bit if that's of concern.
Anyone? Alguém mais? Well, so
You go, yeah.
So can you go back to the results again? The ones on.
It will be very long. It will be very long, but I can go. Yes.
Yeah. No, because just like on the last, again coming back to my point, I think like the more you can repeat things and do it over and over again, I think the greater the value of pre-registration. I think like for analysis heavy field experiments, I think the benefits are potentially larger than for something that like everybody analyzes the same way, because I think analysis is where you can mostly change your mind and try this and this and this and go to the p-hacking thing, right? And if you look at like the last point is final analysis, right?
Yeah.
And there's like a lot of unclear there.
Yes.
So like, is that because people are not registering that in detail? Because I mean, to me, like that's where the greatest benefit lies, and like 29 out of 30 something is you can really tell. So like, what's the deal there?
Indeed. So that either it's registered but not with enough detail for us to be fully sure. So that's the thing. If we couldn't be certain, we scored unclear. But also because on our template right now, it's recommended to write all your tests. The power analysis, for instance, is mandatory, but that's only part of the whole statistical test. but the rest is only recommended, and because it's not mandatory, many people just skip it. So we just had no information to compare to, or only partial information, and because it was partial, then it had to be scored on later. So this study also proved different improvements for our template, which we were not per se aware of, but now becomes really clear with that study.
But shouldn't that be mandatory? Like to me, like defining a statistical analysis might be like the most important thing in terms of.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion about this because the issue, of course, is the bigger you make the templates, the least
Less,
interested the researchers are to fit it in. Right? So we have many items that are present but not mandatory to fill in per se. They're just present that people can decide if they want to put it in or not. So those who are committed, they take the time to fill up everything. Right, yeah. You know how it is. Right? People don't have time, and then they skip an item when they skip it. But I think in the future we will make it mandatory. Like this made it clear that it has to be present. We were, I think, a bit too well-intended. We thought people will fill it in, but if you don't force it, people don't fill it in. So now it's clear.
Yeah, but it gives you the flexibility. If you want to create only your hypothesis, it's faster to just leave it blank, the analysis part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, and that's I think right now we'll keep it still somewhat flexible. And then if people decide like I don't want to do it, it's up to you. We can't really force it, but we will have some minimum standard. Because right now it was maybe a bit too flexible. That's also something, and we only exist for a couple of years. It's also something you kind of need to find out and see. But that would be interesting for this study to be done again, maybe in 5 years, and see if the result changes. That was something. Yes.
Great comment. Could this be also linked to the type of studies that are pre-registered? Do you have anything about if it's exploratory or
Yes.
confirmatory?
Yeah, so this was this analysis part was much worse for the exploratory ones than for confirmatory. I couldn't show. I would have had too many graphs for here, but we had per platform, per type of study, exploratory, confirmatory, and then this changes, of course.
But how do you categorize something as exploratory or confirmatory? It seems like a very subjective call, right?
Well, yes, it is, but that's for us. It's simply in the template. It's in both the animal study registry and ours. People have to pick.
Oh.
So we used whatever the author claimed to be. So we go with. It's not us who decided this is exploratory or not. This is how the researchers define it themselves.
Because that could be a thing, right? If you select that your study is confirmatory, then you must have the statistical analysis, and then you can make it mandatory.
Yeah, it's true.
If you don't want to fill it in, then it's registered as exploratory, but then it comes
exactly.
with
That's
those.
that's
you
one
know?
of the things we had thought of indeed.
How specific do you have to be about your outcomes? Like, is the primary outcome, does it have to say, do you have to say exactly that? How are you going to calculate that? Because I mean, sometimes what we get a lot in the ethics board here is like, primary outcome is like, reference memory in the models, whatever it is. Like, okay, how do you measure that? It's like, so do you have to be very specific about it? Because that's something we get a lot of very vague outcomes which you can actually measure X, Y, Z, and then it doesn't really feel good.
No, normally, so it's the name of the outcome, how do we measure it, and when. So especially if it's repeated measures, so that's the free information we demand. Again, as I said, we can send comments for more completeness. Now, if the author refused multiple times to provide more information, I come forward. This is a free service. They want to have their protocol with less information. I have warned them, like, oh, we highly recommend you to have so and so. And if they send me an email saying I'm not going to do it, I just have to accept it.
Well, you could mark it as exploratory, as you said. That's, I mean,
Yeah, maybe.
our focus on the brand has to be higher.
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, there is a risk indeed that people will say, oh, whatever, I won't write it. I mean, I get the point. But
Yeah, and I understand that you were starting, so it's better not to be that strict because otherwise the numbers are already low.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I don't have the slide here, but for both platforms combined, I did this for the World Congress, so just a week ago, we had less than 500 papers, equivalent protocols total, which is, I took some numbers for Europe. If we took a number of projects per year since the start of both platform, that meant 0.6% of all projects has been registered in Europe, which is extremely little.
Where did the 500 come from? Are they mostly from Europe? Do you have?
No, it's actually really worthwhile. I was mentioning this earlier to some of the colleagues, but some of our ambassador makes an incredible job. We have in the top 5 countries we were not expecting at all, but because we have ambassadors there, it's really bringing traction. So for instance, the third one is Indonesia, which I would have never expected. But our ambassador for whom is doing an amazing job there, forcing all of his PhDs to do this, and colleagues to do this. But no, there's in total 36, I think, in the recent updates, countries in total. So it's really from everywhere, but the majority is Europe, of course. We have every continent represented. So, and the Netherlands, of course, which is a Dutch platform originally, is first. And the top 3 is Netherlands, Canada, and Indonesia, surprisingly. And I'm afraid Brazil is at the bottom with maybe 2. Well, there's a lot of them with only 1 or 2. I think there's maybe 2.
Yeah, I think you said like the main areas of research that were registered were cancer research, cardiology,
Yeah.
Neuroscience, and I think you said like nutrition.
Yeah,
and
nutrition,
media,
that's the top 4, yeah, that's right. So cardiology is first. We have a lot of large complementary trials with pigs, for instance, and they take a big part of the platform. Neuroscience and neurosurgery, I think those are cancer research and nutrition, this is the 4 top that we have at the moment. And then it's more individual topics or fields. But at the same time, it's not extremely surprising. I think these 3, neuroscience, cardiology, and cancer research, gets a lot of funding as well, so it makes sense that they're represented here. I think this is.
Well, alguém mais?
I hope it was interesting.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course, my pleasure. Thank you all for coming. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm really far from my email. Please contact me. Hold on. Please write it down. See, that's why nobody could do my slides for me. There's too many animations. Please write it down. Feel free to drop me an email. I'm always glad to answer questions. You can also add me on LinkedIn. Don't hesitate. Hoping to see you on the pre-registration platform. And if not, during maybe my next visit. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.